Words. They don't just communicate thoughts. They reveal the hidden things in our hearts. They don't just communicate ideas. They create worlds. The mouth and the words we say are a creative force that is not only used all the time, but everywhere we go. Our words are the very essence of how the Creator made us. Join us as we discover the essence of man and the power of speech. Hey, welcome to the Essence of Man and Power of Speech. This is day 26. And so yesterday we talked about the power of words and how they can diminish or increase. And diminish means to take away from, to cause something to be loosed. In other words, when the character of a person is viewed as solid and then you speak evil and then their character doesn't seem as solid anymore, it's loose. But increase is about multiplying. And I read this yesterday. It says, this is Ephesians 4:29. It says, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace unto the hearers. So when we speak words that are positive, if you will, then what we see is that this causes grace to fall. It causes an increase. But when we speak evil, it has the opposite effect. It causes a diminishing to happen. So if you didn't get to listen to yesterday, I would strongly recommend it, day 25. But I'm tying this in to what we're talking about now because of the fact, believe it or not, your ego multiplies with Lashon Hora. Your ego multiplies with evil speech. And matter of fact, your ego is because of your evil speech. The greater the evil speech, the greater the ego. Now, let me prove it to you. Let's look at Proverbs 15, verse 14. And here's what it says. The heart of him that hath understanding seeketh knowledge, but the mouth of fools feed on foolishness. You say, what does that got to do with ego? Everything. Because a person who seeks after knowledge has to humble himself in order to receive knowledge. But a fool never humbles himself. He will open wide his mouth because he's afraid of looking stupid. So what he does is he tries to show off how much he knows when he knows nothing. That is his ego. He is spouting off words to prove that he's something that he's not. When if he would just humble himself and be quiet, he would actually be more wise, and Proverbs talks about that. And so what we see here is this very fact that when a person speaks evil speech, it's because there's ego in them. Now that might be a little painful to hear, but it's the truth. Because what do we do whenever we speak evil of people? We are trying to diminish them. This is why I said you need to listen to yesterday. Because of the fact, why are we trying to diminish somebody? Because our ego wants to be raised above them. Well, did you see what they're wearing? Did you hear about so-and-so, how they failed? Well, I never would have done anything like that. You see, these kind of things are evil speech, but it's because of ego. And the more a person gossips and slanders, the more a person has a greater ego. There's a lot of people who call themselves humble, but when you hear the gossip out of their mouth, then you know they're not humble. Here's the other thing. For one to obtain knowledge, now remember, he has to humble himself, which means he has to be more of a listener, not a talker. A fool wants to show how much he knows, but a person of humility who wants to learn speaks less. You know, we've talked about guarding the heart, the mind, and the mouth. And, you know, your tongue is surrounded by walls of teeth and skin and bone. That's a pretty good safe, you know, to lock your tongue in. So, but a person of knowledge wants to hear. And in order to be a listener, a hearer, then he has to not talk. You know, some people like to tell jokes because they're uncomfortable of just being themselves. And what I mean by that is they'll tell jokes just to fit in. And sometimes those jokes are kind of off color. But it's a form of evil speech. And foolishness is not only I guess, silliness, but by definition, it's also a perverseness. So when we look at foolishness, it's not only silliness, but it is perversity. So what is ego but nothing but another form of pride? Let me give you a definition of ego. The self, especially as contrasted with another self. So when we talk about ego, we're talking about looking at the contrast between ourselves and somebody else. And if there's something there that we feel insecure about, then chances are we're going to speak evil about that person. If there's something that we are afraid of or have fear of, then we're going to speak evil. We're going to try and diminish that person in order to raise ourselves up in comparison. Now remember, ego is comparison of one to the other. And so, you know, it's funny, people say, I just can't believe them rich people. I tell you what, they just got too much money. But yet, if you were the one with that money, you would not be saying that. But see, we'll tear people down because of what they have. That's ego. Okay? That's pride. And so this is why I say that ego is, the greater the ego, the greater the Lashon Hora in the whole scheme of things. Because of the fact, ego wants to raise itself up and diminish the other person. Okay? Remember, ego wants to raise itself up and diminish the other person. How do you do that? Evil speech. But, you know, Jesus said it this way, I must decrease so he can increase. So God can increase. And so here's the thing, when we put our ego down and speak good, then we begin to raise people up. We begin to increase them. We begin to impart grace into them. And in so doing, we see grace imparted into our own life. We see increase in our own life. Remember this, with your words that you use to diminish others, you're also diminishing yourself. But with your words you use to increase others, you are increasing yourself. You reap what you sow. So when we speak words of increase, grace, it increases not only them, but us. When we speak words that are diminishing, that are fractured, broken words, it's not only fracturing them, but it's fracturing us. This is the principle. But all of this, again, is based because of ego. Ego. The comparison with other people. So this is what causes us to diminish others. It's ego. It's pride. Just downright simple. If you catch yourself speaking evil, immediately start looking at yourself and saying, maybe I'm a person that got some pride in them I need to deal with. Why do you speak negative of people? Why do we diminish people? Because we're trying to raise ourselves up. And that only tears us down in the big scheme of things. So, here's your goal for today. Dump the ego. Let yourself decrease so God and others can increase. Amen. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me on the Essence of Man and Power of Speech. We'll see you next time. Have a good day.